If you're like me, purchasing a car is one of the most major decisions that you make in your life. It's very expensive, there's a lot of emotion involved with it, and if you're like me, you also do a lot of research too before you purchase a car. But what if I told you that in maybe a decade or so, cars might be like toilets? Things that you use out of necessity, but you really don't think about at all aside from just using them. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. First, a huge congratulations to the SpaceX team on serial number 15's successful landing yesterday. What an amazing event. I was actually just watching Scott Manley, or listening to him as I was walking the dogs, and he was talking about how serial number 15 actually looked like it lit its engines later. Now, of course, with the fog, it was difficult to see, but it looked like it lit its engines later than serial number 10. And I think there's a good reason for that, and that is that it actually looked like it burned two engines all the way to the ground, whereas serial number 10 obviously only got down to one engine, and obviously that had lower thrust, but they were only utilizing one engine to do the burn to get to the ground. So what I'm thinking is that SpaceX decided to, and we'll have to just wait and see if we can get any better telemetry. Would have been super helpful if the weather had cooperated yesterday. But anyway, what I'm guessing is that serial number 10 and 15 were falling. Serial number 10 did the flip and started to slow down, and serial number 15 kept going and did the flip later. So what the consequence of that is that, of course, you can't throttle the engines to zero, so you have to, there's a minimum throttle of about 40%, I think, per Raptor engine. So you basically had twice as much thrust in serial number 15 as you did in serial number 10, plus a little extra because serial number 10 didn't exactly work as expected. But anyway, the basic deal is that because you had twice as much thrust out of serial number 15, it had to start its turn and deceleration more quickly than serial number 10. So I think that's probably the reason why serial number 15 started later on the whole process, as much as we could see in the fog. But super, super interesting and very, very cool stuff. And congratulations on the awesome landing, and hopefully serial number 16 will do even better. Alrighty, so on to the topic at hand. What do I mean when I say Teslas are like toilets? Well, this actually comes from an email that a viewer sent me, a very extensive paper that Gert Snijders sent me, and I hope I'm pronouncing that close to correctly, forgive me if I'm wrong. But it's a really wonderful article, very dense. If you're interested in the actual details of this article, I will be happy to put you in touch with Gert. I don't want to directly give this article away because it's 10 pages long and it's, it's got a lot of information that he spent a lot of time compiling. But his basic contention is that we have to stop thinking about cars, as individual commodities, and start thinking about kilometers or miles driven by the cars. So what he's saying essentially is that once you have robo-taxis, the cars themselves will become such a commodity because you won't be purchasing the car anymore, right? You'll be utilizing the car. So you could think about it, and I think his analogy is exactly right, that when you go into an office building to go to work, you need to use the toilet during the day, unless you're a really reprehensible human being. But anyway, if you're any normal person, you will go to the bathroom sometime during the day, but you don't really care what kind of toilets there are. Yes, you might slightly prefer one bathroom over another or something like that. But in general, you don't particularly care because you didn't purchase the toilets and you're just using it temporarily and then you're leaving. So as opposed to perhaps a toilet in your house where you might actually care, right? You're going to use that one a lot and it's part of your house, and so the aesthetic might matter, or the fact that whether it has a bidet attached to it or not might matter. But anyway, in an office building, you are, renting the toilets. You don't really particularly care. So his contention is that when we get to the point where automobiles are driving themselves, and therefore we don't really need to purchase automobiles because it's actually cheaper for us just to rent the time on a car, right? So when I think it costs about 72 cents per mile in the US to drive a car right now that you've purchased. And the idea is that eventually robo-taxis, Elon Musk keeps saying 25 cents per mile, but I find that a little difficult to believe, but let's just say 40 or something like that, or even 50. But when the economics dictate that it costs less for you to rent a car, so it's similar to an Uber, but in the sense of it doesn't have a driver, you just say like, oh, I want a car right now. And quite honestly, with decent AI, like if you go to work at 8 o'clock every morning or something, the AI might just know that, and it might have a car just hanging out waiting for you to get, to go to work. So anyway, so you would not have to wait very long at all, and you wouldn't have to purchase the car, which means you don't have to outlay the cash for all of that, and you don't have to pay the insurance, and you don't have to pay the fueling costs or anything of that sort. So essentially you would be paying, let's say, 40 cents per mile or I don't know what, 25 cents. Yeah, I think 25 cents per kilometer would be an equivalent. But whatever it would be, that you would just go. So if you have a 10-mile drive, that's $4, right? And so that's what you pay, and it's just flat out. You don't have to take up room at your house. You don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about if the car breaks down or anything of that variety. So if that's cheaper than driving the car to work yourself, if you own the car, and let's say you had to pay $7.20 to drive your car to work, which is kind of amazing. I actually live about 8 miles from my work, and I started to just go like, holy mackerel, it costs that much for me to go to work every day. And it's kind of sad to think about that. Now, of course, with the Tesla, the actual energy costs are less, but of course I've paid a great deal of money to purchase the Tesla in the first place. So I'm amortizing that over every mile driven. So yes, it does cost an awful lot of money to drive yourself to work. So when it becomes economically cheaper for a normal average consumer to get a car to drive them to work, and by the way, you can watch movies or sleep or eat breakfast or get some work done or something like that, catch up on something before your meeting, all of those things can be done, so you're not wasting your time in the car either. Let's say it takes you like 25 minutes to drive someplace. That's 25 productive minutes, or frankly, sleeping minutes or something like that, as opposed to 25 minutes that you're just stuck going like this. And that's, that's an annoying waste of time. We waste a lot of time driving. So there's an economic benefit, but there's also the time benefit that we're not wasting our time doing that. Anyway, the idea is when we get to that point, we need to stop thinking about cars as cars. We need to think about them as the capability to transport yourself from one place to another place. And that's all they're doing. It kind of doesn't matter. Eventually, if there's like VTOL or something like that, if we have vertical takeoff and landing little mini airplanes that can take us to someplace else too, same basic deal. It doesn't really matter how you're getting there. It just matters that you are getting from one place where you are to another place where you want to be. And so we need to start thinking about that as a transportation, right? So people talk about transportation as a service, but what Garrett is saying here is that we need to stop thinking about the cars kind of at all. The only people who are going to care about the cars are going to be the manufacturers of the cars and the fleet owners who own the cars. And the manufacturers might become the fleet owners. Certainly Tesla has given some indication that they have an interest in becoming their own fleet owner. And I did an episode many, many moons ago about Tesla taking away the ability to repurchase an automobile after the lease is up. Now, I think they've reinstated that now, but my contention was that what they were saying was that they wanted those cars back after the people leased them so that they could eventually use them in their own robotaxi fleet. I still think that that's a reasonable possibility of something like that happening. So anyway, the upshot of all of this is in about a decade or so, we'll need fewer cars, but the more important part of that is that the major financial and emotional task of purchasing a car that all of us go through multiple times in our lives. And again, like I've said before, it's the most expensive thing you purchase besides your house. At least for most people, I suppose if you buy an expensive boat or something, right? It might be more. But anyway, for most of us, house is first, cars are second, and actually all the cars that we purchase might actually add up to more than the house if you live in the same house for a long time. But anyway, that financial and emotional and stressful decision about purchasing a new car and all of the stuff that's tied up with that could disappear, so that kids who are being born today might have no clue what people talk about when they talk about the emotions of buying a car. They might just say like, it might be like as if you were telling them, oh gosh, the emotional trauma of buying a toilet or something like that. And they'll say like, what the heck? You just go to Lowe's and you go buy a toilet and no big deal, right? Or again, the even better analogy is like you're saying like, oh, the emotional trauma of going into the office building and picking the particular stall that I want to go to the bathroom in. That, most people would say like, that is a very bizarre thing to do. Now I know there's probably some of you out there who are OCD and they like very particular one. But anyway, so you're welcome to be emotionally attached to your robotaxi if you want to. But most people are just going to utilize cars in the future as something that they need, but something that they're not emotionally or financially connected to. And that's a pretty cool, different way of thinking about things. So thank you, Garrett, very much for bringing this to my attention and making me think about this. And again, if anyone's interested in the details, he really does go into a lot of detail about this. You can write me on Gmail and I'll put you two in touch and he can send you the paper. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it fun and informative and thought-provoking, I hope. It's kind of weird to talk about Teslas and toilets together, but there you go. Anyway, if you did, please do like the video because that's how other people find it on YouTube, and please do subscribe for more of this. Also, as always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You all are wonderful. Thank you all so much for your support. And don't forget about WeBull. If you open an account with WeBull, you get one stock valued at up to $250, and if you fund the account with $100, you get another stock valued at up to $1,600. Plus, WeBull now does cryptocurrency trading. So definitely check out the link in the description and help out the channel by opening an account. Thank you. Of course, don't forget about our merch store, which has Don't Mess with Tesla, my awesome Tesla bot t-shirt, and many other t-shirts and tumblers, etc. Check it out in the description. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how clicking on a link and going shopping helps out the channel. Thank you. And as always, please feel free to ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.